What's up guys, and welcome back. Today on Trent's Garage, we are gonna be tearing into the bottom end of this Toyota 4.0. If you guys caught our last video, I basically tore the entire motor down all the way down to the short block. So now I've got to completely disassemble that so that I can get it taken over to a machine shop. This is my buddy Mike. He actually come up to give me a hand today while we tear down this short block, and then we're gonna start kind of like coming up with some plans and some theories of how I'm gonna build the tube frame. Mike has a lot of experience with tube work and fabrication and stuff like that, way more experience than I have, so I've brought him up here to kind of give me a hand and help me figure things out.
And you guys go way back actually, right?
Yeah, I met Mike when I was 16 years old in high school, right around the same time that I met Brandon, so we've known each other for a very long time.
Yep.
Kind of busted apart right here a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's because, like, so when this thing got hit in the front right, two of these in the front, and then two of these. The tire was like up inside the wheel well, so I was like, oh, the A-arms are bent, that's totally fine. And like, even this right here, you see this is key.
It's like an inch off or more pushed back.
I've probably spent the last 20 minutes just kind of introducing Mike to the Tacoma and kind of showing him what we've done. He has a lot of experience with this, so like none of it is new to him, but it's his first time up here, so he hasn't seen any of this truck or any of the damage that was done to the frame. So we were kind of talking about whether it's worth it to save any of the frame, and I think he agrees that it's not worth saving any of it. It's like,
In your professional opinion.
No, we're gonna go full custom.
so I think today we're gonna start tearing down the short block and get the crank and the pistons and the rods out of this block so that I can get it taken down to a machine shop and have them deck it and hone it and all the things, probably bore it. I don't know exactly what shape the cylinders are in, so we're gonna let the machine shop deal with that. But as soon as we get done with this, we're gonna try and get the body mounts cut out of here and start measuring and kind of figuring out exactly how our tube frame's gonna go together.
It's
So when I was 16, when I rebuilt my very first motor, Mike was there to help me. We had auto class together, we competed on the auto tech team together, and
Wow.
that was the first engine that I think either of us had really rebuilt, and it took us like 5 months of auto class to tear this motor down and rebuild it, and I put like a bigger turbo on it and a bigger intercooler and bigger injectors and new tune, and like I made it this super fast race car, and it lasted for like probably 2 months. And then I was racing a motorcycle, and when I stopped, there was kink, 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 kink. I had like a rod knock. So something went sour. I never tore the engine apart. I just junked the car. I was like so upset about it. And the objective of rebuilding this motor is to not have something like that happen again.
cylinder 2 shows a little bit of crankshaft or bearing wear on the actual crank journal. There's a little bit of scoring on the actual crank. It doesn't look bad. I think it could be polished.
Salvageable.
Yeah, come over here and we'll tell you what we're talking about.
See a groove in that bearing where the rest of them are all pretty much smooth.
Interesting. And basically,
You gotta really know what you're looking for there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to tell. I can show you here. You want there to be zero imperfections, right? So like, if you look in here, you can see that the inside of this is probably the worst one. So you can see like the discoloration, those black marks, and then like the shiny parts in the middle. That's bad. Like that is where there's been some excessive wear, probably some heat, and essentially these rods either need to be reconditioned or replaced. So when I take the block down to the machine shop, I'm probably just gonna take the crank and the rods too, and I'm gonna say, hey, check everything here for me, make sure that these are gonna be right, tell me what bearing size I need, maybe polish the crank if it needs it. And that way, none of the responsibility falls on me to be like micrometering things and making sure that they're good. I can say, take care of it, machine shop. They'll tell me what size bearings I need once they're done with it. And then I'll be good to go.
So they normally Teflon coat the sides of these,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll start getting a little bit of a slap noise inside.
Okay.
And that's just out of tolerance engine, basically.
See, and that's another thing too, is that like I could have just blown the rings in my Impulse and it was just piston slapping, but like it sounded like a rod knock. And I didn't have that, at like 17 years old, I didn't have enough experience to tell the difference between piston slap and rod knock and like what was actually going on. All I knew was that the last 6 months of my life had just blown up in front of me and I was very upset about it.
Hey Trent, so those who don't know what an Isuzu Impulse is, what is it?
Yeah. So the Isuzu Impulse is like this tiny little 2-seater coupe car. I guess there's actually seats in the back, but they like basically don't exist. It was a car that Isuzu made in 1990 to 1991, basically. They made 800 of them. They're all-wheel drive, they're turbocharged, they're intercooled. They're like a really, really cool car. They're kind of like Subaru WRX, before the WRX was even a thought, like when the Impreza wasn't turboed or anything like that. It was a really cool car, but there was only 800 of them. So when things went wrong and parts were bad, there was no parts, because I had this car in like 2004 and it was made in 1991 and they only made 800 of them. So parts were non-existent. It was a huge pain in the butt. It was the wrong car to like rebuild, but it was the only thing I could afford that was turboed and cool, and it was a giant learning experience is what it was.
What about the poster? More rare than a Ferrari.
Yeah, seriously. It really, like, they're extremely rare. Like, I think I've only seen like one other one since I was in high school, like
Wow.
on the road. They also made an Isuzu Impulse in like 88 to 89, but it was a completely different body style and it kind of looked like a DeLorean. It was weird,
What did you do
but
with it?
I gave it to the Kidney Foundation.
Wow.
Yeah, I took out like most of the expensive parts and sold them, but then I just donated it to the Kidney Foundation and got like a tax write-off or something. But it's mostly because I was so hurt. I just couldn't take it anymore.
So I think next we're gonna probably take these bolts out for your girdle,
Yep.
and then we're good to pull the caps off. Side bolts out.
So Mike, since the Impulse, what's your background been with cars?
A little bit of everything. My own builds, of course.
Cool.
I became a shop foreman for a heavy equipment shop. I did a lot of mechanic cranes and that kind of thing. And then I moved on to the off-road industry, where I've worked for 3 different shops, ranging anywhere from old square body Chevys to brand new, everything.
So you're here to school Trent, basically.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
We learned together initially, and then I just completely fell off, and Mike like took it to the moon. So actually, when we were in high school, we both were supposed to go to Universal Technical Institute, which is like an automotive college. And Mike actually ended up going right after high school, and I was supposed to go, but due to some other circumstances in my life, I ended up having to not go to that college. I'm grateful that he went, because now he has all of this knowledge and I can call on him for it, but I'm jealous that I didn't get to go.
We were supposed to be roommates.
I know.
No, but
Now there's basically these little oil squirters, which is like, maybe a lot of engines do this now, but I think Toyota was like the first manufacturer to realize that if you put these little squirters in the bottom here, they squirt oil at the bottom of the pistons, which helps keep temperature down. That's like one of the things that Toyota did with their like famous V8 that was in all the Land Cruisers that just runs forever and is a bulletproof engine. It's because of those little oil squirters.
Like a sprinkler system?
Yep.
Do you have any embarrassing stories of Trent you want to share?
Absolutely not. Not a poker.
only one that's really funny, and that's definitely not YouTube appropriate. Oh boy.
Redneck engineering at its finest. Now let me weld these bolts together and see if we can get that out.
Just what I expected. There was Teflon in there.
I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I don't know how much I actually talked about it. But instead of rebuilding and machining and doing everything to the heads that came off of this engine, I just bought some remanufactured heads. They have camshafts that have been gone through, they've been milled down, everything, I mean, they've been reground valves, everything in them is gonna be basically like new quality, and then I just send these ones in as a core. So just saves time and energy and moving them around and all that stuff. So we're gonna unpackage these new ones, take everything off of the old heads that needs to go onto these new heads, then I can package those up and ship them back. All right, so these are the old heads. I've removed everything off of them that the new heads didn't come with, and really the last few things that I have to remove is there's 2 of these studs on the top of each head and 2 on the back of each head. I need an inverted Torx socket to remove those studs. So I'm gonna have to get that Torx socket. Then once I get those 8 studs removed and thrown into those heads, I can bag these up, throw them in the box, and ship them back to the guy that remanufactured those, and they'll be ready to go. Problem is I don't have that inverted socket, so that's as far as we can get with the heads today. All the parts we're gonna save are in this bin, but this bin is how I'm actually gonna transport the block and all of the parts that are going to the machine shop to get cleaned up. So I think I'm gonna try and take everything out of here and then only put the stuff that's going to the machine shop in this bin, and then we can load it into my truck and take it down.
What would you say your budget is for this rig?
That's a great question.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I probably can't talk about that well, at least here.
Are you measuring for the tube?
Yeah, so we're basically taking some measurements of the body mount bolts and where they are on the chassis so that we can actually, or where they are on the body so that we can build the chassis to catch all 4 body mount bolts and be like our nice square level section of frame to do all of the tube work off of from that point. So it's like making a nice parallel, legit base to mount everything off of.
Cool.
And then hold it up until I have that clearance. Come on, gas. So basically this goes down inside your gas tank, and this is where your fuel pump is. And then you can see this little gauge right here on the side. This is a float. So as this thing floats up and down with the level of gas, this is a little electronic, basically volt.
Potentiometer.
Yeah, potentiometer, right? Which is like something that releases a certain amount of volts depending on how high this float is, and then it determines your gas gauge. So you need to keep that.
You want as much ground clearance as you can at right height. But with your 16-inch coilovers, what I'm going to project is we only give you 4 to 6 inches of up travel.
Yeah.
And then you droop.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to be.
This is our blueprints for the rock crawler right now, is these measurements that we've got. And I think this is actually going to help because now I'll be able to take the 2x6 tubing and like build this shape on the ground. And then bring it over and bolt it to the body mounts, like with
Instead of stick framing?
With pretty good accuracy, yeah, instead of stick framing. Which, you know, I mean, stick framing would probably work, but just most likely end up with some weird crooked stuff going on. All right, well, we've been doing some planning for the chassis. I'm really excited. I think in the next episode, we're actually gonna start cutting some tubing and welding it together and creating the chassis that is gonna mount the body. And I wanted to say a huge thanks to Mike for coming out and helping me today. Thank you, Mike.
You're
Hopefully, Hopefully Mike is gonna be here in the next episode to help me with the tube frame as well, because that's where his real expertise comes in. I could, undo all the bolts and stuff, but I really need his help with the fabrication.
What's the consensus, Mike? How's this project turning out?
We have everything lined out for some really good progress going forward.
Okay.
We've collaborated, come up with a good game plan. I'm super excited to get the ball rolling.
All right.
So we got the fuel pump out, we got the short block broken down. We made a lot of progress in this video, and if you guys enjoyed coming along on this adventure, make sure you show me by giving a big thumbs up on today's video. Consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the next one.